Alright, this video here is solving algebra problems with variables on both sides, but if you take a first glance here, we have a 3/4 fractions, everybody's favorite, right? Okay, we're going to follow the same process as we've done in the other videos. Our goal here is to get all the x's over to one side. Well, with any problem, I like to go ahead and just divide up the problem into a left side and the right side of the equal signs. Now, if you look at this, the first thing we have to do is we have to distribute this 3/4. And just because you see a 3/4 doesn't mean you have to go grab your calculator right away. All right, we're still going to distribute. And 3/4 is a fraction. So when I distribute 3/4 to 2, I like to think of, okay, 2 as a fraction. Let's change that into 2 over 1. And let's change 12 into a fraction as 12 over 1. Now, distributive property means we're going to multiply. I'm going to head over here to my side, and I kind of always do a little side work here. Anytime I multiply fractions, I have 3/4 times 2 over 1 x. Well, let's review how to multiply fractions. If we have 3/4 times 2, okay, anytime we multiply fractions, the rule says multiply the numerator by the numerator and the denominator by the denominator. If you do that, you're going to get 3 times 2 is 6, and then 4 times 1 is 4. We created a new fraction, 6/4. Well, I don't like to think of 6/4 as a fraction. I like to reduce that. They're each divisible by 2. So 6 divided by 2 will give me 3, and 4 divided by 2 will give me 2. So this is our first product of 3/4 times 2 over 1. So if we go back here, the first result of our distributive property is going to give us 3/2 times x. And I like to write the x right next to it. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have to add. And we've got some more work now. We've got 3/4 times the fraction 12 over 1. So go back over to your side work. We're going to do 3/4 times 12 over 1. And our same rules apply. We're multiplying fractions. So 3 times 12 is 36. And 4 times 1. Remember, numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. 4 times 1 is 4. Now, if you look at 36 over 4, it's divisible by 2. It's also divisible by 4. 36 divided by 4 is 9. 4 divided by 4 is 1. We have 9 over 1. Well, we can write 9 over 1 as the whole number 9. So we're going to go back here. And the result of 3/4 times 12 over 1 is a positive 9. We have not done anything yet with the left side. That's going to stay 3x minus 3. All right, now we still have the same process here. We have to get all our x's over to the other side. So we're going to follow the same rules as we've done before. 3/2 x. It's just a number. It's a positive 3/2 x, so we're going to subtract 3/2 x to both sides. And notice how I align that right underneath the other term with an x. So let's see how this reduces here. A positive 3/2 x plus a negative 3/2 x, that adds up to 0, meaning these cancel out. They go away. The positive 9 is left over on this side. We haven't done anything with this minus 3, so we know that's going to drop down. But now we have 3x minus 3/2 x. So we come back to our side work here. We're thinking, oh no, how do I subtract a 3x minus 3/2? Well, what we're really subtracting is we're subtracting 3 minus 3/2. We have to review our fractions. When we subtract fractions, Well, first, let's turn this into a fraction. That's 3 over 1. Now, our rule for subtracting fractions is we need a common denominator. So, one thing we can do is to get this to be a common denominator, I could take this denominator and multiply it by 2. Whatever I do to the denominator on that fraction, I have to do to the numerator. Now we're going to change this. So now 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2. And then this part's just going to drop down. Here's one way to think of this. Once you have a common denominator, you can actually rewrite that as take the numerators and subtract them and keep the same denominator. So then this turns into 6 minus 3 is 3, and that's 2. Since the fraction 3/2 does not reduce any further, let's just leave it as the fraction 3/2. Now remember, there is an x attached to this. So we have 3/2 x left over. And now what we're looking at is we're looking at a two-step algebra problem. So we have all the x terms over on the left side. This minus 3, we want to move over to the other side. To do so, we're going to add 3 to both sides. So when I add 3 to both sides, the negative 3 and positive 3, they add up to 0. 3/2 x is left over, and that's equal to a positive 12. Alright, I usually see students get to this point and then they kind of get confused because they think, okay, 3/2 x. Well, remember what's happening here. This is 3/2 times x. We could divide by a 3/2, but dividing by fractions gets pretty ugly. So instead of dividing by 3/2, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal is when you take and you flip the fraction upside down. You invert it. And if I multiply this to both sides, we're really multiplying by 2/3. Now if you think of this, follow your rules right here. You can multiply across. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. That's really 6 over 6. But as a fraction, 6 over 6 is really just 1, or in this case, 1x. Well, now I have 12 times 2/3. Go back to our thinking here over on our side work. Anytime you multiply a fraction, you multiply straight across. So let's turn this 12 into a fraction. And then we're going to multiply straight across. 12 times 2 is 24. And 12 times 3, oh, excuse me, 1 times 3 is 3. And now you want to think of this as a fraction that can be reduced. How does 24 over 3 reduce? That was my cell phone in case you heard it. We have 24 divided by 3. Well, 24 divided by 3 is 8, or you could reduce the fraction and divide each one of them by 3, and you'll get 8 over 1. Or we're okay with saying just 8. So this was a nice problem because we got to review a little side work here. How do you multiply fractions? How do you add fractions or subtract fractions? And then we got to use the distributive property and combine like terms. Enjoy.